Ambassador Vex'thara of the Galactic Dominion had conquered 47 star systems. She had witnessed the surrender of entire civilizations, watched proud warrior races kneel before the might of her fleet, and personally delivered ultimatums that had reduced galactic emperors to quivering masses of protoplasm. None of this, however, had prepared her for the absolute cosmic nightmare that was dealing with humanity. The massive crystalline ship descended through Earth's atmosphere with all the pomp and circumstance of a 1,000-year-old military tradition. Energy shields shimmered like aurora borealis, while the hull projected holographic displays of the Dominion's greatest victories. It was a show designed to inspire immediate terror and unconditional surrender. Instead, 3 teenagers filmed it on their phones and uploaded it to something called TikTok with the caption "Mid-Alien Invasion." Kinda cringe, though. Vex'thara materialized in the center of the United Nations General Assembly, her 7-foot frame crackling with energy that could level city blocks. Her voice boomed with the authority of countless worlds. "Primitive humans, I am Ambassador Vex'thara of the Galactic Dominion. Your species has exactly 72 hours to surrender unconditionally, or we will reduce your pathetic planet to cosmic dust." The assembly fell silent. Vex'thara's mandibles clicked with satisfaction. Finally, the appropriate terror response. Then Captain Jake Morrison of Earth's newly formed Department of Extraterrestrial Affairs raised his hand. "Yeah, hi, quick question. Do you have any documentation for that threat? Because I'm going to need to file this with about 14 different agencies, and they're all going to want paperwork." Vex'thara blinked her compound eyes. In the entire history of galactic conquest, no one had ever asked for documentation. What? "Documentation," Morrison repeated, pulling out a tablet that looked like it had survived several minor explosions. "You know, permits, threat authorization forms, invasion licenses. You can't just show up and threaten planetary annihilation without going through proper channels. This is Earth, not some lawless backwater." The other delegates began nodding in agreement. The French representative leaned forward. "Oui, and what about environmental impact studies? Planetary annihilation surely requires assessment. Insurance liability," added the Canadian delegate helpfully. Morrison nodded seriously. "Right, insurance. Big issue. Plus, we're going to need your fleet to register with customs. Can't have unregistered vessels in Earth's orbital space. That's a hefty fine right there." Vex'thara felt her confidence wavering. "This wasn't in any of the conquest manuals. But I just threatened to destroy your entire civilization." "And I appreciate that, I really do," Morrison said, somehow managing to sound both sincere and completely disinterested. "But threats are regulated under the Menacing Communications Act of 2019. You'll need to fill out a TMF-77 form, get it notarized, and submit it through proper channels. It should take about 6 to 8 weeks for processing." 6 to 8 weeks? Vex'thara's voice cracked slightly. "Could be longer if there's a backlog," Morrison shrugged. "Holiday season coming up? You know how it is." The worst part was that no one seemed remotely concerned about the massive alien warship hovering over New York. The British representative was checking his phone. The Japanese delegate appeared to be online shopping. Someone in the back was actually taking a nap. "Are you not afraid?" Vex'thara demanded, her voice rising to a near shriek. Morrison looked genuinely puzzled. "Of what? You? Buddy, I've dealt with airport security, health insurance claims, and the IRS. You're going to have to try a lot harder than hovering ominously and making vague threats." And that was when Ambassador Vex'thara of the mighty Galactic Dominion, conqueror of worlds and terror of the galaxy, realized she might have bitten off more than she could chew. 3 hours later, Vex'thara stood in what humans called a waiting room, holding a small plastic number that read 847. The digital display currently showed they were serving number 12. Next, called Penelope Walsh from behind bulletproof glass that had somehow survived both alien energy weapons and the more devastating force of daily customer interactions. Penny had worked at the DMV for 17 years. She had seen grown men weep, witnessed the breakdown of entire family relationships, and once made a state senator cry just by asking for additional documentation. An alien invasion was just Tuesday with better special effects. "Number 13, Penny announced in the same tone she might use to discuss roadkill. Vex'thara approached the window, her diplomatic credentials crackling with energy. I am Ambassador Vex'thara of the Galactic Dominion. I demand to speak with your planetary leaders immediately. Penny didn't look up from her computer screen. Did you make an appointment? I don't need an appointment. I represent the most powerful military force in the galaxy. Everyone thinks they're special, Penny muttered, finally looking up. She'd seen weirder things. Last week, a guy had tried to register a shopping cart as a motorcycle. You want to meet with government officials, you need to fill out a DGA 445 form, provide 3 forms of identification, proof of diplomatic status, and a notarized letter of intent. I have conquered 47 star systems. That's nice, honey. Do any of those star systems provide acceptable documentation for Earth bureaucracy purposes? Meanwhile, 300 miles above Earth's surface, Commander Vex'thara was experiencing his own bureaucratic hell. The invasion fleet had been directed to something called a customs checkpoint, where a bored-looking official named Randy was methodically inspecting every single ship for contraband and undeclared goods. "Sir, I'm going to need to see inside this weapons locker," Randy said, completely unfazed by the fact that he was addressing a being that could vaporize him with a thought. "Those are plasma cannons capable of destroying entire cities," Vex'thara explained. "Aha. You got permits for those?" "Permits?" Yeah, permits. You can't bring military-grade weapons into Earth space without proper documentation. That's like Customs 101. Vex'thara felt his 3 hearts beginning to palpitate. "We are here to conquer your planet." "Well, that's going to require a whole different set of forms," Randy sighed. "Conquest attempts fall under the Department of Extraterrestrial Affairs, the Department of Defense, the EPA, and probably the FDA if you're planning to do anything with our food supply. You're looking at minimum 6 months processing time." Back on Earth, Vex'thara had progressed to window number 4, where she encountered a new circle of bureaucratic hell. The clerk, whose name tag read Steve, having a rough day, looked like he'd given up on life sometime around the Clinton administration. "It says here you want to register as a diplomatic entity," Steve said, squinting at forms that Vex'thara had spent 2 hours filling out incorrectly. "But you checked individual instead of organization. Gonna have to start over." "I will incinerate this entire building," Vex'thara hissed. "Yeah, you and everyone else," Steve replied. "Take a number." The real genius of humanity's defense strategy wasn't intentional. It was simply that human civilization had evolved into such a beautiful, complex web of inefficiency that it was virtually impossible to conquer. Every system required 17 different approvals. Every approval required forms that referenced other forms. Every form had to be submitted to a different office, each with different hours, different requirements, and different definitions of what constituted proper documentation. By the end of the day, Vex'thara had filled out 247 different forms, been redirected to 18 different offices, and discovered that to properly threaten Earth with annihilation, she would need to register as both a foreign diplomat and a small business owner. The invasion fleet was still stuck at customs, where Randy had discovered that several ships were carrying unlicensed biological specimens, the alien crew members, which required an additional 72-hour quarantine period. As the sun set over New York, Vex'thara sat in her hotel room. The Galactic Dominion had excellent travel insurance, and staring at a stack of paperwork that seemed to mock her very existence. Somewhere in the distance, she could hear the sound of humans going about their daily lives, completely unaware that they were supposed to be cowering in terror. She had conquered civilizations. She had broken the will of entire species. But she was beginning to suspect that humans might be the most dangerous force in the universe. They had weaponized their own incompetence. Dr. Marcus Webb had never intended to become Earth's leading expert on alien psychology. His PhD was in cultural anthropology, and his most significant achievement before the invasion had been a paper on the sociological implications of food truck placement in urban environments. Now, apparently, he was humanity's best hope for understanding why the aliens seemed to be having a collective nervous breakdown. "So let me get this straight," Webb said, reviewing his notes while sitting across from a increasingly agitated Commander Vex'thara. "Your species based its entire invasion strategy on studying human behavior through our entertainment media." "It is standard protocol," Vex'thara insisted, though his confidence was clearly shaken. We analyze a species' cultural output to understand their psychological weaknesses, their fears, their breaking points. And you chose to study us through reality television and social media. Your documentaries were very informative. Webb paused his pen. Documentaries? Yes, The Real Housewives of Atlanta, Jersey Shore, Love Island. Fascinating insights into human mating rituals and social hierarchies. Webb slowly put down his pen. Commander, those aren't documentaries. What? What? Those are entertainment. Fiction. We made them up for fun. The color drained from Vex'thara's face, which was impressive considering his species was naturally purple. You mean humans don't actually resolve conflicts by throwing drinks and flipping tables? I mean, some do, but it's not like official policy. Vex'thara's mandibles began clicking rapidly, which Webb had learned was the alien equivalent of hyperventilating. But the social media posts. The humans declaring war on everything. War on Christmas, war on drugs, war on poverty. We assumed you were the most militaristically aggressive species in the galaxy. Those are just expressions, Webb explained gently. We're not actually at war with Christmas. Christmas is a holiday. We like Christmas. Then why do you declare war on it? We don't. Some people say there's a war on Christmas when other people say Happy Holidays instead of Merry Christmas. It's not a real war. Vex'thara stared at him for a long moment. Your species declares war on abstract concepts and seasonal celebrations? Sometimes we declare war on drugs, which are also not a foreign nation. This makes no sense. Welcome to humanity, buddy. The situation had only gotten worse when the Galactic Dominion's artificial intelligence attempted to process what humans called Florida Man incidents. Every day, their threat assessment computers received news reports about humans doing things that seemed to defy the basic laws of physics, logic, and self-preservation. Explain this, Vex'thara demanded, pulling up a news article on his tablet. Florida Man attempts to rob bank with alligator. That's just Florida, Webb shrugged. Florida is a combat zone? Florida is a state. It's like, imagine if an entire region of your planet just decided that the laws of reality were more like suggestions. Vex'thara's eye twitched. This Florida Man also tries to pay for McDonald's with marijuana, calls 911 to report stolen drugs, and rides manatee because he was drunk and thought it was a mermaid. Yeah, that sounds about right. Is this one individual or an entire army? It's just what we call anyone from Florida who does weird stuff. So there are multiple Florida Mans, Florida men, and yeah, millions of them. Vex'thara's threat assessment computer began making a sound that could only be described as electronic sobbing. The breaking point came when the aliens discovered Twitter. Their AI spent 3 days analyzing human communication patterns before concluding that humanity was simultaneously planning 73 different apocalypses, arguing about sandwiches with religious fervor, and conducting psychological warfare through cat videos. Your species uses small domesticated predators as weapons? Vex'thara asked, his voice hollow. What? No, cats are pets. But you deploy their images to manipulate emotional responses in enemy combatants. We deploy their images because they're cute. Cute is a military strategy? Cute is just cute, man. Ambassador Vex'thara, meanwhile, had discovered TikTok and was now convinced that humans communicated primarily through interpretive dance and 15-second attention spans. Her reports back to the Dominion High Command were becoming increasingly incoherent. They perform ritualized movements while consuming liquid in small plastic containers, she reported. The liquid consumption appears to be ceremonial, as they frequently spill it on themselves while gyrating. Are you describing a religious ceremony? Asked High Command. I believe it may be a form of combat training. They call it dancing, but I suspect this is a code word. The final straw came when Dr. Webb showed Vex'thara a compilation of humans arguing about whether a hot dog was a sandwich. The alien commander watched in fascination as thousands of humans engaged in passionate debate about food classification, with some providing detailed legal arguments and others resorting to diagrams and charts. This is about food? Vex'thara asked weakly. This is about the nature of sandwiches and the philosophical implications of cylindrical bread products. But why do they care so much? Webb considered this. You know what? I have no idea. but we're very passionate about it. Vex'thara stared at the screen for another minute, watching humans debate sandwich taxonomy with the intensity of galactic peace negotiations, then quietly stood up and walked away. Webb could hear him muttering something about requesting a transfer to a nice, simple, warlike species that made sense. The cultural gap wasn't just wide. It was a cosmic chasm filled with reality TV, social media arguments, and the inexplicable phenomenon of humans who were willing to fight to the death about whether cereal was soup. The Galactic Dominion's next strategy was psychological warfare, which seemed like a solid plan until they met General Patricia Pat Sullivan. Pat had organized church potlucks, managed her son's Little League team, and survived 3 decades of military bureaucracy. An alien invasion was just another item on her to-do list, somewhere between pick up dry cleaning and call mom. "So you're trying to demoralize us by broadcasting scary messages," Pat said, reviewing the alien's psychological warfare plan like she was planning a community barbecue. "That's cute." Commander Vex'thara straightened with pride. "We will broadcast the screams of your fallen warriors, project images of your cities in flames, and demonstrate the futility of resistance against our superior technology." "Honey, you're going to have to do better than that," Pat replied, making notes on a clipboard. "Last month, the internet went down for 4 hours and people lost their minds. You want to see real psychological warfare? Try explaining to a soccer mom why her son's game got canceled because of technical difficulties." The aliens' first attempt at psychological warfare involved broadcasting ominous messages about humanity's impending doom. The plan was to break human morale by demonstrating the hopelessness of their situation. Instead, humans began treating it like a new form of entertainment. Alien threats started trending on social media, with people rating the quality of different doomsday broadcasts and creating remix videos set to pop music.
Today's alien threat is brought to you by Commander Vex'thara, announced a cheerful human voice on something called a podcast. And honestly, Zeth, buddy, you're phoning it in today. Yesterday's Rivers of Molten Fire bit was way more creative than Eternal Darkness and Despair. We're going to have to give this one a 6 out of 10. Good effort, but you can do better.
Vex'thara found himself actually taking notes on how to improve his threatening technique. Things got worse when the aliens tried to demonstrate their superior technology by disabling Earth's power grids. The plan was simple: show humans their helplessness by removing their dependence on technology. What they hadn't counted on was that humans had been preparing for power outages their entire lives. Within minutes, backup generators kicked in, people broke out candles and board games, and someone in Texas started a tailgate party in the parking lot of a defunct shopping mall. "This is actually kind of nice," one human was heard saying during a power outage. "When's the last time we all just sat around and talked without looking at our phones?" The aliens' advanced technology began malfunctioning almost immediately. Their quantum computers, designed to process information from countless star systems, couldn't handle the chaotic energy field that surrounded Earth. Every calculation was disrupted by something called Murphy's Law, which stated that anything that could go wrong would go wrong at the worst possible moment. "Sir, the navigation system is directing us to something called a Walmart parking lot," reported one of Vex'thara's subordinates. "The weapon systems keep switching to customer service mode," reported another. "And the communication array is now somehow subscribed to 17 different email newsletters about weight loss supplements." The worst part was that humans seemed to be genuinely enjoying the invasion. Street vendors began selling "I Survived the Alien Invasion" t-shirts. Food trucks started following the alien patrols, serving galactic burgers and cosmic nachos. Someone had already started a GoFundMe to help the aliens with their obvious financial difficulties. General Sullivan, meanwhile, was running the Earth's defense strategy like a neighborhood block party. She had volunteers organizing carpools for evacuation drills, set up a phone tree to keep everyone informed, and somehow convinced the aliens to follow proper noise ordinances during their intimidation flights. "Now, Vex'thara," Pat said, speaking to the alien ambassador like she was addressing a misbehaving child, "we've talked about this. No threatening announcements after 10 p.m. on weekdays. People have work in the morning. But we are trying to instill terror." Vex'thara protested weakly. "And you can instill terror during appropriate hours. How about we schedule your doomsday broadcasts for Tuesday and Thursday afternoons? That works better for everyone's schedule." The aliens found themselves nodding along. Pat had that effect on people. The final nail in the coffin came when humans began volunteering to help with the invasion. The Galactic Dominion's logistics were a nightmare of bureaucratic red tape and military hierarchy, but humans had generations of experience dealing with inefficient systems. "You know what your problem is?" said a human named Bob, who had somehow talked his way onto the alien command ship. "You're thinking about this all wrong. You don't invade a planet, you franchise it. Let me show you how this works." Within hours, Bob had restructured the entire invasion command, implemented a customer feedback system, and introduced casual Fridays. Morale among the alien troops improved dramatically.
Vex'thara found himself in the unprecedented position of being more organized and efficient than he'd ever been in his military career, while simultaneously making no progress whatsoever toward conquering Earth.
"Sir," his aide reported, "the humans have offered to help us file the paperwork for planetary conquest. They're helping us invade them?"
They said our forms were filled out incorrectly and offered to walk us through the process. Also, they want to know if we'd like to join their potluck dinner. Vex'thara stared out at the Earth below, where humans were going about their daily lives, occasionally waving at the alien ships overhead like they were greeting neighbors. Somewhere, a human was probably arguing about sandwich taxonomy while another was creating a TikTok dance about alien invasion preparedness. For the first time in his military career, Commander Vex'thara began to suspect that his species might be the ones in over their heads. Captain Jake Morrison had never wanted to be a hero. He'd wanted to finish his shift, go home, watch Netflix, and maybe order pizza. Instead, he'd somehow become the face of humanity's accidental resistance movement, which consisted primarily of aggressively helpful customer service and weaponized bureaucracy. "You know what your real problem is?" Morrison said to Ambassador Vex'thara during what had become their weekly coffee meeting. "You're trying too hard. Conquest is like customer service. The more desperate you seem, the less effective you are." Vex'thara, who had spent the last month navigating Earth's administrative systems, was beginning to understand that humans had accidentally created the most sophisticated torture device in the galaxy, their own government. "I have filled out 847 forms," she said, her voice hollow. "I have been to 23 different offices. I have spoken to 94 different representatives. And I am no closer to conquering your planet than when I started." "Yeah, that sounds about right," Morrison nodded. "You want some more coffee?" Meanwhile, Earth had begun its counteroffensive, though no one had officially called it that. It started when Penny Walsh, the DMV employee who had first processed Vex'thara's paperwork, was promoted to Director of Extraterrestrial Bureaucratic Relations. The key to dealing with hierarchical species, Penny explained to her new team, is to introduce them to democracy. Nothing breaks down a command structure faster than a committee meeting. Within days, the Galactic Dominion found itself subjected to focus groups, customer satisfaction surveys, and something called 360-degree feedback reviews. Their rigid military hierarchy began crumbling under the weight of performance evaluations and team-building exercises. Commander Vex'thara announced his aide, "You've been selected for mandatory sensitivity training." What is sensitivity training? Apparently, it's where humans teach us about emotional intelligence and workplace communication skills. Vex'thara felt his soul dying. The real breakthrough came when humans introduced the aliens to multi-level marketing. Within hours, the entire Dominion command structure was trying to sell each other essential oils, weight loss supplements, and something called a business opportunity that would let them be their own boss. "But I am already a commander," Vex'thara protested. "Yeah, but are you financially independent?" asked Karen, who had somehow infiltrated the alien ship and was now holding a presentation about passive income streams. "With my system, you could make money while you sleep." "I do not require money while I sleep." That's exactly what someone who needs passive income would say. The alien social structure, built on millions of years of rigid hierarchy and unquestioning obedience, couldn't handle the concept of someone trying to sell them cryptocurrency during a military briefing. Things reached a breaking point when the humans introduced the concept of carrying complaints to the Galactic Dominion. For a species that had never encountered customer service, the idea of someone demanding to speak to the manager about the quality of their conquest was psychologically devastating. "I want to speak to whoever's in charge of this invasion," announced an actual human named Karen, who had somehow convinced the aliens to let her board their flagship. "Because this is completely unacceptable." "Unacceptable?" Vex'thara asked weakly. "First of all, your threatening messages are way too loud. I have a sleeping baby. Second, your ships are blocking my satellite reception. And third, this whole invasion thing is taking way too long. I have a yoga class at 3. but we are conquering your planet. Well, you're doing a terrible job of it. I want to speak to your supervisor. The request worked its way up the chain of command until it reached the Galactic Dominion High Council, who found themselves in the unprecedented position of being complained about by their own conquest target. Captain Morrison, meanwhile, had accidentally become a galactic folk hero by being spectacularly unhelpful. His complete indifference to the invasion, combined with his supernatural ability to redirect any request to someone else's department, had somehow turned him into a symbol of human resistance. "You're really inspiring," an alien defector told him. "The way you stand up to authority by completely ignoring it." "I'm not standing up to anything," Morrison protested. "I'm just trying to get through my day without filling out more paperwork." "That's exactly what makes you so brave." Morrison stared at the alien, trying to figure out how being lazy had become a form of heroism. The end came not with a bang, but with an email. After 6 months of bureaucratic warfare, multi-level marketing attacks, and sustained caring complaints, the Galactic Dominion formally surrendered via a strongly worded message sent through Earth's customer service portal. "Dear Earth Customer Service Department," the email began. "We are writing to formally withdraw our invasion of your planet. Please accept our apologies for any inconvenience caused by our attempted conquest. We have learned valuable lessons about efficiency, customer service, and the importance of proper documentation. We will be leaving your solar system immediately and do not wish to be contacted about this matter again. Please remove us from all mailing lists. Sincerely, the Galactic Dominion, account 347829. Morrison read the email twice, shrugged, and marked it as resolved in the customer service system. Somewhere in the distance, he could hear the alien ships powering up their engines to leave. The invasion was over, and humanity had won by being exactly what they'd always been, a bunch of people just trying to get through their day without dealing with anyone else's problems. It was the most human victory in the history of warfare. 6 months after the failed invasion, Captain Jake Morrison was having the worst day of his career, which was saying something considering his career had included an alien invasion, 3 congressional hearings, and a book deal he'd never asked for. "So let me get this straight," Morrison said, staring at the latest reports crossing his desk. "We've accidentally conquered 3 star systems. Accidentally colonized," corrected his assistant, Linda, who had been promoted from handling Morrison's scheduling to managing interstellar relations. "The Zephyrians requested we take over their government after they heard about our democratic processes. Apparently, they're tired of their emperor and want to try voting." "What about the Crystalline Collective?" "They're converting their entire economic system to match Earth's after someone introduced them to capitalism. They're very excited about something called market fluctuations." Morrison rubbed his temples. "And the third system?" "The hegemony of Vex'thara formally requested annexation after they discovered our complaint resolution process. They said it was the most advanced form of conflict management they'd ever encountered. The truth was that humanity had accidentally created a galactic empire based entirely on the principles of customer service, bureaucratic efficiency, and the democratic right to complain about everything. Other species, tired of their own rigid hierarchies and authoritarian systems, had begun requesting the human treatment. Ambassador Vex'thara, meanwhile, was experiencing her own career transition. After months of struggling with Earth's bureaucracy, she'd been reassigned to manage the newly established DMB office on Kepler 442 billion, where she was teaching alien species the fine art of vehicle registration and renewal processes. "Next," Vex'thara called out, her voice carrying the same soul-crushing monotone that had made Penny Walsh a legend in customer service circles. A tentacled creature approached her window, clutching what appeared to be 17 different forms. "I need to register my atmospheric transport vessel," the creature said hopefully. "Did you bring your proof of insurance?" "My what? Insurance. You can't register a vehicle without proof of insurance. But I don't understand the concept of insurance." Vex'thara smiled with the cold satisfaction of someone who had finally found their calling. "Oh, you're going to love this. Take a number and have a seat. This is going to take a while." Meow. Bye. Commander Vex'thara had found his own niche in the new Galactic Order, running a complaint hotline for the former Galactic Dominion. His military training had proven surprisingly useful for dealing with customer service issues, and his natural authority helped him manage even the most difficult callers. "Galactic Customer Service, this is Commander Vex'thara speaking. How can I help you today?" "Yes, I'd like to complain about the quality of your conquest services," came a voice over the communication system. I'm sorry to hear you're unsatisfied. Can you please describe the nature of your complaint? Well, you invaded our system 3 years ago, but you never followed through. We've been waiting for oppression, but all we got was a strongly worded letter and some paperwork. Vex'thara sighed. I understand your frustration, sir. Unfortunately, we've discontinued our conquest services due to operational challenges. However, I'd be happy to transfer you to our democracy installation department. The real success story was Dr. Marcus Webb, who had leveraged his experience with alien psychology into a thriving consulting business. He now traveled the galaxy teaching other species about human behavior, with particular emphasis on the advanced psychological warfare techniques known as customer service and bureaucratic processes, the key to understanding humans. Webb explained to a conference of alien diplomats is recognizing that they've created a society so complex that they don't understand it themselves. They survive through a combination of willful ignorance, aggressive helpfulness, and the shared belief that someone else is responsible for fixing everything. The audience took careful notes. General Pat Sullivan had been promoted to Director of Galactic Neighborhood Relations, a position she'd created for herself after realizing that most interstellar conflicts could be resolved with proper communication and a good potluck dinner. Her monthly galactic community meetings had become legendary for their ability to settle centuries-old disputes through the simple expedient of making everyone bring a covered dish and work things out like adults. Now, the Andromedans are upset because the Centaurians keep parking their ships in the wrong orbital slots, Pat announced to the latest meeting. And the Centaurians are upset because the Andromedans never RSVP to social events. This is a communication problem, people. Let's work it out. But the real test of humanity's accidental galactic dominance came on a Tuesday morning when Morrison walked into his office to find another diplomatic message waiting for him. Sir, Linda said, we've received another invasion threat. Morrison looked up from his coffee. Another one? The eternal scourge of the void. Apparently, they're the ultimate destroyers of worlds, and they're giving us 48 hours to surrender or face unimaginable torment. Morrison stared at the message for a long moment, then sighed deeply. Did anyone tell them about the paperwork requirements? I sent them the standard information packet. Form 77B for threat registration, Form 23C for invasion permits, and the complete guide to Earth's bureaucratic processes. What did they say? They asked if we accept digital signatures. Morrison felt a familiar exhaustion settle over him. Forward their information to Penny's office. She'll get them sorted out. Already done, she scheduled them for next Thursday at 2 p.m. Outside the window, Morrison could see normal humans going about their normal lives, completely unaware that their species had accidentally become the galaxy's most feared bureaucratic power. Somewhere, an alien species was probably trying to figure out the difference between a permit and a license. Somewhere else, another species was discovering the joy of customer satisfaction surveys. Morrison looked at his calendar, which showed meetings scheduled with the Reptilian Trade Consortium, the Silicon-based collective, and something called the Brotherhood of Eternal Darkness, who apparently wanted to discuss setting up a complaint resolution process. He sighed, took another sip of coffee, and got back to work. Being an accidental galactic empire was exhausting, but someone had to manage the paperwork. In the distance, he could hear the sound of another alien ship requesting permission to land. The voice over the radio sounded appropriately threatening and ominous right up until it asked, do you guys validate parking? Morrison smiled despite himself. Some things never changed.